The first time the wrong number saved her life, Lena Brooks didn't even realize she dialed it. The second time, she started to wonder if God sometimes used glitches instead of miracles. The third time, she knew. Whoever was hiding on the other side of that screen had quietly decided she was worth saving. Lena pressed her back against the cracked wall of her tiny one-bedroom in South Seattle and closed her eyes, trying to breathe past the knot in her chest. The old radiator hissed and clanged in the corner, making more noise than heat. Her 10-year-old son, Caleb, was finally asleep on the pull-out couch, one hand still clutching a pencil, his math worksheet smudged under his cheek. She checked the time on her cheap Android. 12:47 a.m. Her best friend, Tori, was probably still awake on night shift at the ER. Tori always said, "If your brain gets too loud, send me a voice note. I'll listen when I can. Just don't keep it all in." Don't keep it in. That was Lena's specialty. Keeping it all in until her thoughts rattled around her skull like coins in an empty jar. She opened WhatsApp, tapped on Tori's name, and held down the little microphone icon. For a second, she saw a reflection in the dark TV screen. Messy bun, oversized thrift store hoodie, deep shadows under hazel eyes. She looked exactly how she felt, like the world had been pressing down on her shoulders for years and had finally decided to lean a little harder. Tori, her voice came out hoarse. She cleared her throat, tried again. Tori, I'm so tired. The words tumbled out after that like they'd been waiting at the back of her throat all day, all week, maybe since Caleb was born. I don't know what to do anymore, she whispered, keeping her voice low so she wouldn't wake him. Mr. Whitaker came by again today. Said if I don't have the full rent by Friday, we're out. I gave him everything last month. I've been picking up every shift the diner will throw at me, hemming jeans for neighbors, babysitting. It's never enough. Either I pay rent and we eat ramen for a week, or I buy groceries and listen to him pound on the door like I'm stealing from him. Her throat burned. She pressed harder against the wall as if it could hold her up. And Caleb's school sent another email. They're regretfully reminding me his activity fees are overdue. He brought home a flyer for the robotics club. His eyes were so bright, Tor. Mom, look, I could build real robots if I get in. He was bouncing, and all I could think was, how do I tell my kid his mother can't even afford his dreams? She let out a strangled half laugh. I'm exhausted from pretending I'm okay. I work, worry, come home, cry in the bathroom so Caleb doesn't see, sleep 4 hours, do it again. I'm not strong, Tori. I'm one bill away from disappearing. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it with the heel of her hand, annoyed at herself. I know you'll say I've made it this far, I'll make it more, but I don't want to just survive. I want to take Caleb to a movie without calculating how much popcorn costs. I want to pay rent without my hands shaking. I want to shut my eyes at night without hearing Mr. Whitaker's fist on the door. Her voice dropped even lower, raw. Sometimes I think Caleb would be better off without... She cut herself off, horrified at the thought she'd almost said out loud. No, I don't mean that. I'm just tired, so tired. She exhaled shakily into the mic. Anyway, I just needed to say it somewhere. Don't freak out. I'll figure something out like always. I just didn't want to be alone in my head tonight. She let go of the mic. The voice note sat there, a long brown bar with a tiny triangle waiting to be tapped, like it contained another version of her, one that had dared to be honest for exactly 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Her thumb hovered over send. What if she sounded dramatic? What if she made Tori worry when Tori already dealt with enough trauma at the hospital? What if she didn't send it and exploded instead? She hit send. The voice note zipped across the screen, became sent. 1 gray check, then 2. Lena stared at it for a second, then locked her phone and set it on the thrift store coffee table. The apartment hummed around her, the fridge rattling, a siren wailing faintly somewhere down Rainier Avenue, the upstairs neighbor's TV leaking canned laughter through the ceiling. She wrapped her arms around her knees and whispered into the dark, "God, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Please, just help." Across Lake Washington, in a glass and steel house most people only saw from the freeway and pointed at, another phone lit up in a dark office. A new number. Unknown. WhatsApp voice note. Norm Mercer frowned at the notification. He thought he'd stripped his phone of everything but the essentials: company alerts, his sister's texts, his security chief's calls. He turned off every other ping years ago. The Steen still glowed. Unknown number, one voice message, 312. He should have ignored it. 99% chance it was spam, someone's accidental pocket recording, or a wrong number. He tapped it anyway, more out of restless insomnia than kindness. He tapped it. The chat opened, no profile picture, just the voice note, waiting. He plugged in his earbuds, more habit than need, and hit play. He was ready for noise, for chaos, for something he could dismiss. Instead, a woman's tired voice filled his ears, soft and fraying at the edges. "Tori, I'm so tired." He stilled. The way she said the word tired stopped him cold. It wasn't casual. It was bone deep, like someone who'd been carrying something heavy long enough her arms had gone numb. He leaned back in his errand chair and listened, really listened as she talked about rent and a landlord named Mr. Whitaker banging on her door, about a boy named Caleb and a robotics club and overdue fees she couldn't pay, about shifts at a diner, sewing for neighbors, counting every dollar until her head hurt. She never once asked for money. She never once asked for a miracle. She just admitted, in a whisper meant for someone else, that she was almost at the edge. When she cut herself off mid-sentence that Caleb would be better off without... No one's grip on his phone tightened. He heard the silence that followed, the sharp inhale, the way she forced herself to back away from the ledge of that thought. He didn't realize his own jaw had clenched until the voice note ended and he tasted copper where he'd bitten the inside of his cheek. The server rack in the next room hummed. 3 monitors glowed in front of him, real-time metrics for his payment app, Quick Pay, an unfinished design doc, and a paused chess game against an AI that never got bored. The office, all dark wood and smart glass, suddenly felt too quiet. Wrong number, he told himself. She'd meant to send this to someone named Tori, and somehow it had landed in his lap. Just bad luck for her, weird coincidence for him. He could delete it. He could block the number. He could pretend he'd never heard or swallow back the words, "better off without me." But her last sentence echoed in his head. "I just didn't want to be alone in my head tonight." He knew something about being alone in your own head. Noah Mercer had been the golden boy once. Forbes covers, TED Talks, the kid who made moving money as easy as texting. Then an acquisition went ugly. His younger brother died in a wreck on a foggy highway, and all the cameras turned cruel. Noah had walked off a stage one day and never gone back on. Calls were routed through assistants. Meetings became video windows he could close. He told investors he was focusing on product. He told his sister he just needed space. Years later, he still hadn't stepped into a grocery store like a normal person. His inventions connected millions of people every day. He himself had turned into a rumor, a ghost in a smart house, a username at the bottom of company emails. He replayed the voice note. The second time, he caught little details he'd missed. The scrape of his sleeve against the wall as she shifted, the crackle of old paint, the muffled traffic outside a window that probably looked at another building instead of a view. He'd built an empire on numbers, yet this anonymous woman's rent and late fees felt more real than the billions QuickPay processed every week. "This isn't your problem," he muttered to himself, pushing away from the desk. He paced to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the lake. City lights glittered on the water. Somewhere out there, she was probably curling around her kid, trying not to cry loud enough to wake him. Not my problem. The trouble with having more money than you could ever spend, he had discovered, was that you could drown guilt in comfort for only so long before it started banging on your own skull, like a landlord on a cheap apartment door. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He could send a simple, "wrong number," just enough to keep his conscience from screaming that he ignored a drowning person calling from the wrong dock. Instead, he typed, "You don't know me."
This definitely went to the wrong number, but I listened. Please don't hate me for that. Are you safe right now? He hesitated only a second before hitting send. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Yeah, I'm fine." "I'm so sorry. That wasn't meant for you. Please delete it, and please forget it." His chest tightened. People always apologized for bleeding, he thought, even when they'd been stabbed. He typed, "I'll delete it if you really want me to, but I don't think I can forget it. Your honesty was loud." There was a long pause. "You mentioned rent due Friday, school fees piling up," he added. "How much are we talking?" Her reply came fast, like a slap. "I'm not asking you for anything. I didn't even mean for you to hear it. Please don't misunderstand. I don't want help from strangers. I don't know you." Fair, he thought. Noah swallowed, then hit the mic icon for a voice note. It felt weird. He mostly talked in bullet points and Slack threads these days. "You're right. You shouldn't trust a stranger easily," he said quietly. "If this were me, I wouldn't either. So don't trust me yet. Just listen." He stared at the dark window while he talked. "I spend most of my time staring at numbers," he said. "Payment IDs, transaction streams, people paying for coffee, sneakers, streaming services. It all blurs. Your voice note didn't. I'm not going to ask you for photos or your address or anything creepy. I don't want anything from you. But I can make sure your landlord can't throw you and your kid out on Friday. And I can do it without leaving my chair." He hesitated, then added, "If it makes you feel better, pretend it's from your future self who finally caught a break and came back to hand you a lifeline." He sent it. Before he could overthink it, he added in text, "Just send me your preferred payment app or bank. You can treat it as a loan if you want. No interest, no deadline. If someday you can pay it back, great. If not, I'll survive." He stared at the screen, wondering exactly when he'd lost his mind. Her reply didn't come right away. Lena's phone buzzed on the wobbly table while she cracked eggs into a pan at 6 a.m. She'd spent the last few hours in that half-sleep where your body rests, but your brain keeps running numbers. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, grabbed the phone, and frowned at the unknown chat. She read his messages twice, then played the voice note. His voice surprised her. It was low, steady, a little frayed, like someone who didn't talk out loud much. Not the accent of some scammer overseas, not the slick charm of a guy trying to flirt, just tired, honest in a way that made her suspicious and comforted at the same time. "You can make sure my landlord can't throw me out on Friday?" She snorted out loud in the cramped kitchen. "Sure you can, Batman," she muttered. Caleb shuffled into the room, hair sticking up. "Mom?" "Morning, buddy," she said quickly, locking her phone. "Eggs okay? With cheese?" "If I can find some," she said, peering into the fridge like it might magically refill if she stared hard enough. A half block of cheddar, slightly dry at the edges, sat in the drawer. She scraped off the worst bits and smiled. "Cheesy eggs." While Caleb brushed his teeth, she leaned against the counter and opened WhatsApp again. "You really expect me to trust some random dude on the internet who heard me crying and wants to send money? Why?" "Because I can. And because I haven't stopped thinking about that voice note for the last 3 hours. Then, call it selfish. I'd like to feel like all this tech I built can actually keep a real kid in a real home, not just optimize another coffee purchase." She stared. The eggs were starting to burn. She cursed, flipped them onto plates, and decided. Not for him. For Caleb. My bank account's a mess because of my ex. Long story. I only use QuickPay now. She added her QuickPay handle, the one she used to pay the power bill, and split takeout with Tori on the rare nights they could afford it. You swear you're not about to ask for anything weird. No pics, no calls, no meet me at this motel crap. I swear I will report and block you into oblivion. I swear. No strings, no meetups, no weirdness, just invisible help. You'll probably get a notification soon. If you block me after that, I'll understand. She shoved the phone into her hoodie pocket. Suddenly shaky. If this was a scam, she'd feel like an idiot. If it wasn't, she didn't know what she'd feel. Her pocket vibrated on the bus 15 minutes later. She dropped Caleb at school with a kiss and a, "Don't worry about anything but robots, okay?" And now she was wedged between an old lady and a construction worker, the air thick with damp coats and cheap coffee. She opened QuickPay. A new notification blinked at the top. $4,000 received from @NorthLakeGhost. She almost dropped the phone. "Oh my God," she breathed. The old lady next to her glanced over. "You okay, money?" I think so," she said, dazed. Her rent was $1,800. Caleb's school fees and overdue activities came to about $800. The rest was more money she'd seen it once in years. Her eyes blurred. "You sent way too much," she typed with shaking fingers. "I told you what I owe. This is like double." "Call it buffer." Life loves surprise expenses. They hurt less with padding. Besides, if I'm going to make my therapist proud, I should probably start doing more than just writing big checks to foundations where I never see what happens. He added, "You don't owe me an explanation for any of it." Her brain snagged on one word. Therapist. Of course the mystery rich guy with an invisible helper complex had a therapist. She snorted despite herself. "You're insane. Also, terrible with money. Terrible financial strategy to help a crying stranger on WhatsApp." "It's good PR with God." She laughed out loud, a sharp, unexpected sound that made the construction worker glance over. She swallowed it into a smile, feeling that heavy knot in her chest loosen just a fraction. "Fine," she typed. "But if this turns into a murder podcast, I'm haunting you." "Fair," he wrote back. Back at the apartment after her diner shift, after she had handed Mr. Whitaker rent 3 days early and watched his condescending frown melt into oily politeness, after she'd paid Caleb's fees online and signed him up for the robotics club, Lena sat cross-legged on the pull-out couch and finally asked the question that had been hovering all day. "Why?" she typed. "Nobody does this. Not where I live. Not like this." He took longer to answer this time. Finally, a voice note arrived. Short version: "I built a thing that made me stupid rich, and then my life exploded. Since then, I've spent a lot of time hiding with my millions of lines of code, telling myself it's not my job to fix every bad thing I see. Your message showed up and refused to be background noise." He hesitated. "Selfishly, helping you feels real. Like I'm not just optimizing payments and A/B testing buttons, while people out there are doing the actual hard living." He ended. "I don't need you to feel grateful. I just don't want Friday to be as terrifying as it sounded." Her throat tightened, but she armored it with sarcasm. "You are absolutely not getting a saint card for this. Also, I'm not telling you my real name. You get L, and that's it. Then call me the ghost with Wi-Fi." She smiled, then shook her head. "Nope. You're Invisible Wallet Guy. That's your brand now. I've been called worse." What started as a panicked midnight confession and a reckless transfer turned into something neither of them had expected. She didn't block him. She meant to. At least that's what she told herself the first few days. But then Friday came and went, without Mr. Whitaker's fist on the door. Caleb waved a permission slip for the robotics club in her face, talking so fast about sensors and motors she could barely catch the words. Lena watched him and thought, I can breathe for a second. The ghost with Wi-Fi texted, "How'd Friday go?" Mr. Whitaker didn't yell for the first time in months. "My blood pressure is confused." Side effect of paying landlords early. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. He asked how Caleb had reacted to the club fees being paid. He did this weird jumpy dance and almost knocked over the lamp. Then he hugged me so hard my ribs cracked. She wasn't used to giving daily status reports to anyone, but the way he asked, curious, not prying, made it weirdly easy. So she sent him little snapshots of her days. The diner customer who left a $20 tip on a $12 bill and wrote "hang in there" on the receipt. The neighbor whose too tight jeans she fixed while listening to 90s R&B on the radio. The way Caleb fell asleep watching YouTube videos about Mars rovers. He didn't know his last name, his address, or what he looked like. He didn't know her last name either, or exactly where in the city her drafty apartment was. In some ways, that distance made it easier to be honest.
When she complained about Caleb's dad, who sent birthday texts 3 days late and child support checks 3 months late, the invisible wallet guy didn't tell her to be grateful he's still around at all. When he admitted he hadn't spoken to his parents in almost a year, she didn't tell him to just call, life is short. They just listened. I live with servers and security cameras, he wrote once. Some days you're the only real person I talk to. That's tragic, she replied. You should get out more. You say that like it's as easy as ordering DoorDash, he wrote. She only learned his real first name by accident. One night, exhausted after a double shift, she crashed on the couch with Caleb and half slept through a tech channel on TV. The host was talking about reclusive founders and the man behind QuickPay, some genius who disappeared from public life after his younger brother died. A grainy photo flashed on the screen. A tall guy in a hoodie at a product launch, brown hair, blue eyes, the kind of half-awkward smile people praised as authentic. In big letters under the image, Noah Mercer, 29. She stared. QuickPay. Noah. Millions. After Caleb fell asleep, she opened WhatsApp. Staring at the chat she typed before her courage vanished. So, how many other single moms have you randomly bailed out exactly? He replied, you're the first, actually. And then a beat later, why? Because I just saw a documentary about the Hermit King of QuickPay, dude named Noah something. Kind of looks like he hasn't slept since 2018. He didn't respond for 2 full minutes, which felt like 2 years. Finally, Mercer, he typed. Noah Mercer. Is this the part where you tell me you hate my app? Is this the part where you tell me you're joking? She shot back. He sent a screenshot. A paused YouTube video, same tech channel, same frame. His younger self throws in mid-sentence. The words Noah Mercer, the man who made money, disappear into the cloud across the bottom. She zoomed in until the pixels blurred. The jawline was sharper, the eyes less tired, but the voice in her ear when he sent voice notes fit the face perfectly. Holy crap, she typed. You're that Noah? Yep, he wrote. Please don't sue me. Her heart pounded. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard. You own the app I used to pay my light bill, she sent slowly. Own is complicated. Built it, still control enough. Why didn't you tell me, she demanded. Because if some random guy had messaged you in the middle of the night saying, hi, I'm Noah Mercer, billionaire mess, let me pay your rent, you would have blocked me so fast my phone would have cut fire, he wrote. She couldn't argue with that. He added, and if you had believed me, my name would have been sitting in the corner of every chat like a third person. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be a guy with Wi-Fi. She stared at his words, then sent a voice note before she could overthink it. I don't care how many zeros are in your bank account, she said. You should have told me your real name. Not because I need it, because you needed to trust someone enough to say it. Her voice shook a little. Also, I'm retroactively rescinding every insult. Calling you invisible wallet guy when you were literally Mr. QuickPay is next level stupid. He laughed and sounded genuinely surprised. For the record, invisible wallet guy is still better than some of the things they call me on financial news channels. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. I'm not going to bow down and thank you, Noah Mercer, she wrote with deliberate emphasis on the name. I'm still mad at you for letting me ugly cry into your billionaire inbox without full disclosure. Noted, he answered. Consider me partially unfriended. Damn right, she replied. Partial unfriending. You don't get to disappear now. You're stuck. Once his name was out in the open between them, some things changed. A lot didn't. He still texted at weird hours when his brain wouldn't shut off. She still sent him 5-minute voice notes about rude customers and the exact right way to season fries. He still never asked for selfies. She still pretended she hadn't Google image searched him later and stared way too long at photos of him on stage in a black t-shirt, hands moving as he talked about democratizing payments. But knowing who he was made every notification feel heavier. When the power company hiked rates,
and Lena stared at the bill. Her first instinct wasn't panic anymore. It was, stupidly, I could just tell Noah. She didn't. Sitting at the table with the bill under her hand, she typed instead. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to not be one surprise bill away from disaster, what would they do? He answered like she'd called into a podcast. First step, increase income a little. Second, make that income less fragile. Third, build a tiny safety net so every emergency isn't an earthquake. Wow, thanks, Dr. Finance, she replied. Do you take insurance? He ignored the joke. You said you hem jeans and do alterations, right? And the ladies in your building love your work. They do, she admitted. They also love paying in compliments and leftover casserole. What if we made that an actual business? He asked. She snorted. My living room and a Craigslist sewing machine is a business now. Half the companies in Silicon Valley started in garages, he replied. Why not a living room in Seattle? He laid it out in simple bullet points. An online page with photos of her work, no face, a form to request custom jobs, all payments through QuickPay so she didn't have to chase people with crumpled bills. He offered to handle the tech. She'd handle everything that required actual talent. She resisted on principle. I'm not your charity case, she wrote. Good, he replied, because I'm a terrible charity. I am, however, a decent co-founder. She eyed Caleb, sprawled on the couch with his Chromebook, a tutorial on circuits playing softly. After a long moment, she sighed. Fine, she said in a voice note, but if this blows up, I'm sending all the angry aunties to your lake house. He laughed. Deal. They called it Thread of Hope because Lena said it as a joke, and Noah refused to let her walk it back. It's corny, she protested. It's true, he said. Some nights, she and Caleb pushed the coffee table aside and photographed dresses and altered jackets by standing them on a busted thrift store mannequin Noah had had delivered to her building with no return address. Other nights, she sat at the sewing machine until her eyes burned while talking to him about everything and nothing. Her cousin Alyssa's judgmental comments about mystery money, his sister's stubborn attempts to drag him to family dinners, the ache that still snuck up on him when he thought about his brother's crooked grin. He likes stars, Noah said once, voice rough. Used to drag me out to the roof of our crappy apartment building before all this and make up constellations. Maybe that's why you ended up living in a glass box in the hills, Lena replied gently. You got addicted to big skies. He didn't answer for a long moment. Maybe, he said. Finally, someone ordered a dress from Thread of Hope. Then 3 more people. Then somebody posted a photo on Instagram and tagged the page, and orders from strangers started trickling in. Lena charged more than she ever had in cash. People still paid. On time, through QuickPay, without flinching. This is witchcraft, she told Noah. This is you being underpaid your whole life, he corrected. She used part of the extra money to buy Caleb a secondhand tablet so he could watch better robotics videos without hijacking her phone. When she told Noah, she braced for a lecture about savings. Instead, he sent a list of kid-friendly STEM channels and said, good call. Caleb started saying things like, when I build my own drone, and my friend at school said his dad works in a lab with real robots. Instead of telling him to be realistic, Lena bit her tongue and tried to believe a little too. The glitch that almost blew their secret wide open was on a Tuesday. It started like any other systems update day. Noah's dev team rolled out a small change to QuickPay's backend at midnight. Tests passed, logs looked clean. They all went to bed. At 10 the next morning, Lena's phone started buzzing while she stood over the diner griddle flipping burgers. Between orders, she glanced at the screen. 3 messages on Thread of Hope's page, all variations of, your payment link is broken. She checked her QuickPay merchant panel during her break. The last few payments showed us pending. Her stomach dropped. She typed to Noah. Not to be dramatic, but your beautiful app is currently trying to ruin my 5-star rating. His reply was instant. What's happening? Clients say payments show an error, but money left their accounts. My dashboard says pending. If this makes me look like a scammer, I will drive to wherever you are and choke you with measuring tape. Okay, terrifying, he wrote back. Then, which merchant ID? I'm checking now. She sent the ID, wiped her hands, and went back to work, heart thudding.
By the time her shift ended, 4 hours later, the issue was fixed and every payment sat in her account like nothing had happened. Noah called her for the first time. Not a voice note, an actual call. Her heart jumped when the screen lit up with unknown caller and the little WhatsApp icon. She hesitated, then stepped into the alley behind the diner and answered. Hello? Hey. His voice through a live call sounded the same as in recordings, just closer. Sorry, I know calls are weird. I wanted to tell you in real time we fixed it. She blew out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. So your empire almost destroyed my empire, she said. Good to know we're even. He laughed, a short surprised sound. We rolled back the bad deploy, he said. It was a routing bug. Only a small percentage of transactions got stuck, but you were in that percentage. Of course. Of course, she echoed. Then it hit her. Wait, we? She narrowed her eyes even though he couldn't see. Were you personally poking around your giant money machine for my tiny dress business? It affected other merchants too, he protested. But yeah, I may have yelled at a senior engineer in 3 time zones until we fixed it. You're ridiculous, she said quietly. In the background, she could hear the faint hum of something, maybe servers, maybe air conditioning in some huge office. She pictured him hunched over a laptop, hair a mess, hoodie pulled tight for comfort instead of fashion. Lena, he said, her name soft and strange on his tongue. Using QuickPay to power your business was my idea. Making sure it doesn't screw you up is also my job. She swallowed. It's not just my business anymore, she said. 2 other women from my building help me sew now. They count on this too. Then I'm glad we caught it, he said. She stared at the graffiti on the dumpster, then asked the question that had been itching at the back of her mind since the documentary. You ever think about not hiding? She said. I saw that video. You were on stages and stuff. Now you're babysitting my transactions from your bat cave. He was quiet for a beat. I think about it, he admitted. World got loud. I made it quiet. Maybe too quiet. For what it's worth, she said, if you ever decide to step outside again, I know one 10-year-old who'd think it's the coolest thing ever. Caleb knows about me? He asked, startled. He knows there's a nice ghost inside Mom's phone. He doesn't know you're like a walking Forbes cover. Please never say that again, Noah groaned. She laughed. Fine, but I meant it. Ghost or not, you'd have at least 2 people happy to see you in the wild. The invitation came a few weeks later. Caleb burst through the apartment door, backpack half open, paper flying out. Mom, we're having a district-wide robotics showcase. I can enter a project. Winners get to tour a real lab at UW. He said it all in one breath, eyes huge. Lena took the crumpled flyer from his hand. Entry fee, materials list, date, location. She did the math in her head. Bus fare, extra supplies, time off from the diner, and felt the old panic stir. Then she thought about the small cushion in her QuickPay balance that hadn't existed a few months ago, about thread of hope, steady orders, about the fact that for once an opportunity didn't immediately translate into a threat. She said, "We're doing it." Caleb blinked. "We are?" "Yeah." She tapped the paper lightly against his forehead. "We're absolutely doing it." That night, after he went to bed with his laptop open to a tutorial on breadboards, she texted Noah, "I'm calling in your genius brain. We need a robotics project idea that won't cost my entire safety net." He responded with 3. Caleb picked the one involving a model neighborhood with LED houses wired to show how a power grid works. Together, mother and son spent evenings cutting cardboard, painting little houses, threading wires. Sometimes Noah sent short videos explaining trickier parts directly to Caleb through Lena's phone. "Hi, invisible guy," Caleb would say shyly to the screen. "Look what we built today." Noah, watching from his home office, would smile at the boy's excitement in a way he didn't know his face could still do. The week before the showcase, Lena mentioned the date and time in a message almost casually, then added, "No pressure, just saying, in case you ever wanted to test your go outside theory on easy mode. Middle school gym, bad fluorescent lighting, 0 paparazzi." He didn't reply right away. When he did, it was only 2 words. "I'm scared." She wasn't expecting that level of honesty. She sent a voice note without thinking. "You know how many times Caleb has had to stand in front of his class and read an essay with his hand shaking? He does it anyway. I tell him all the time, if you wait until you're not scared, you'll never do anything." She paused. "You've hidden a long time, Noah. You don't have to show up, but if you ever decide to, we'll be there." He played that message 3 times, then saved it. He didn't say yes. He also didn't say no. On the Saturday of the showcase, the school gym in North Seattle smelled like sweat, cardboard, and cheap pizza. Tables lined the walls, each with a different project. Volcanoes, solar systems, too many half-assembled robot cars. Caleb fussed over his model neighborhood, straightening labels, checking connections. Lena straightened his cheap button-down shirt for the third time. "You're going to crush it," she said. "Even if I don't win, it's okay," he quoted back to her. "We celebrate trying." "That's my line," she said, kissing the top of his head. She took pictures on her cracked phone, promising to send the best one to the ghost. Across the city, Noah stood in front of his mirror for the longest time he had in years. Jeans, plain dark t-shirt, gray hoodie, baseball cap. No watch that cost more than someone's rent. He looked almost anonymous. He told Reed, his head of security, that he was going out alone. "That's not a good idea," he said immediately. "At least let me... If I bring a security detail to a middle school, everyone's gonna know something's up. I just want to... blend." Reed stared, then sighed. "Text me the address, and if anything feels off, you call me. I don't care if you're halfway through a science demo." "Yes, Dad," Noah said dryly. His hand shook a little as he gripped the steering wheel of his own car, a practical black SUV he almost never drove himself. He took back roads, parked a block away from the school, and sat for a full minute, heart racing. "It's just a building full of kids and tired parents," he told himself, "not a press conference." He pulled the cap low and walked in. A volunteer at the door slapped up visitor sticker on his hoodie and gestured toward the gym. Inside, the noise hit him like a wave. Kids explaining, teachers clapping, someone's baby crying. He hadn't been in a room like this since his brother's memorial service. He almost turned around. Then he saw the model neighborhood. Caleb stood behind it, explaining how power flowed from the plant to each tiny house when he flipped a switch. His voice shook a little at first, then steadied. A judge in a school polo nodded, impressed. Beside him, Lena watched with a pride so bright Noah could feel it from across the room. She wore jeans and a simple navy top, her dark hair twisted up, the same tired but fierce look he'd imagined so many times when she talked about double shifts. 100 people separated them. To her, he was still somewhere on the other side of a screen. He walked the perimeter of the gym slowly, pretending to study other projects, getting closer inch by inch. His heart beat too fast. His palms were damp. He'd spoken to rooms of 2,000 people without this much adrenaline. When the judges finally moved on and the crowd around Caleb's table thinned, Lena bent over the project to adjust a crooked sign. Caleb darted off to look at a friend's robot car. Noah stepped forward and reached out to steady one of the cardboard houses she'd almost knocked over. "Careful! Would be a shame if the whole neighborhood blacked out before awards." Lena froze. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Slowly she looked up. His cap shadowed part of his face, but his eyes were unmistakable, the same blue he'd seen in screenshots, tired and amused all at once. For a second, the gym, the noise, the fluorescent lights all fell away. "It's you," she breathed. He lifted a shoulder, suddenly shy. "Hi," he said. "I'm your wrong number." A laugh sob tore out of her. She smacked his arm, not hard. "You absolute idiot. You actually came." "That's what partial unfriending does to a guy. Scares him into personal growth." Up close, he looked exactly like his photos and completely different. Older, softer around the edges, more fragile in ways you only saw when you were this close. Caleb barreled back to the table and skidded to a stop. "Mom, did you see?" He broke off, eyes ping-ponging between them. "Wait, are you?" Noah crouched a little to meet his gaze. "Hey, Caleb, I'm Noah." "The ghost?" Caleb whispered, eyes huge. "Not literally," Noah smiled. "Just a guy who thinks your power grid project is awesome." Caleb's chest puffed up. "You watched the videos. I saw your little icon." "I did. You explained Ohm's law better than some of my engineers."
Caleb beamed like Noah had handed him the moon. Lena's throat closed. She watched them, this billionaire hermit and her lanky, hopeful kid, and felt something in her chest quietly rearrange. Later, when the projects were packed up and it turned out Caleb didn't win first or second, but got a judge's special mention ribbon, they stood outside the school, under a gray Seattle sky. Noah shoved his hands into his hoodie pockets. "So," he said to Lena, "I didn't spontaneously combust in public. That's new." She huffed a watery laugh. "You did good," she said, "on the going outside test." He looked at her, really looked, like he was trying to match every word she'd ever said to this real, breathing person. You did good too, he said, on the building a life out of nothing test. She shook her head. I didn't do it out of nothing, she said softly. I had a very annoying, invisible partner. About that, he said, serious now. I meant what I said months ago. I want to formalize this. Thread of Hope, the expansion, the other women you've brought in. I want to back it properly. Not as some pity fund, as an investor. Silent, if you want, but real. Why? She asked. Not bitter, just genuinely needing to hear it from his mouth, face to face. He glanced at Caleb, who was trying to balance the model on one hand, then back at her. Because somewhere between your first voice note and this cardboard city, helping you stopped feeling like a one-time good deed and started feeling like the only part of my life that isn't just numbers. He swallowed. I don't want to own you, he added quickly. I want to stand next to you while you build something that outlives this weird story about a wrong number. Her eyes burned. She thought about all the times people had tried to build on her back. Bosses, landlords, men who thought paying for dinner bought them access to everything. Noah wasn't asking to stand on her. He was asking to stand beside her. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said. But teammates drink bad diner coffee together, no hiding behind screens. His smile was small but real. I think I can handle that, he said. Caleb cleared his throat loudly. Can teammates also get ice cream now? He demanded. Because I literally presented a working grid to strangers and nobody's fed me since breakfast. Lena laughed, a sound that felt lighter than any laugh in years. Noah chuckled too, shaking his head. Ice cream first, business plans later. They started down the sidewalk, Caleb between them, clutching his ribbon and cardboard city, Lena on one side, still not quite believing this was real, and Noah on the other, every step away from his glass fortress, feeling like one towards something he hadn't even known he wanted. They walked past minivans and cracked pavement and PTA moms with clipboards. Nobody pointed, nobody took pictures. To everyone else, they were just three people leaving a middle school on a Saturday afternoon. To Lena, it felt like the moment her life split again. Not into before the wrong number and after the wrong number, but into before we chose each other and after. For the first time in a long time, as their three shadows stretched out in front of them on the wet concrete, she didn't feel like she was one bill away from vanishing. And for the first time in even longer, Noah didn't feel like a ghost with Wi-Fi. He felt like a man walking into a story he wanted to stay in.